I like to give this analogy. When you're entering a house and it's dirty, something in your brain tells you not to remove your shoe. You just enter, right?
Absolutely.
But if you are entering a house where it's neat, something you'll be saying, should I remove my shoe? Should I remove it outside? Where should I be? Why? Because you're conscious of the environment, right? I also noticed that I think differently from my peers. Like I think 10 years ahead of my age. So what somebody my age will be thinking of, I'll be thinking of it in a different light. So those are things I discovered about myself. Somebody asked me this question. They said, this school is for the government. They're supposed to be fixing this thing. We pay tax and all of that. I said, yes, I agree 100%. But the people we're directing this to is not the government, the kids. Our focus is on the kids because we know that this life is the rotating circle. This is how Shiga would say that if you don't take care of the least of us, the best of us cannot survive.
Wow.
So the least are the ones causing the worst problems we're having, right? So we need to begin to look at how do we intervene, how do we look at the least in the society. So that's how better class environment was born. So
I want to ask, because I know that environment is of the factors that influences our mindset. And just like using the analogy of seeds, there are seeds that never will grow in a particular soil. Not because the seed is impotent, not because the seed is not viable, but because the right environment hasn't been created for the seed. So the best that seed would do is to remain dormant. So how would you say that better class environment influences the outcome of the student or pupils in that school? What role does it really play?
Okay, so in education, you see, research has shown that 25% of learning is affected by the environment. And they say, let me ask, if I put 1% poison in water and give it to you, I say, no, it's just 1%. Go, it's not more, just drink it, you'll be fine. Would you take it?
No.
Get ready to meet Mrs. Sandra Adik is a visionary educator and social entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in coaching and empowering teenagers. As the founder of Better Class Environment BC, a non-profit organization, she has dedicated the last 5 years to transforming dilapidated government school classrooms into vibrant learning spaces for underprivileged children. Through her tireless efforts, she has improved the educational landscape for countless young minds. In addition to her work with BCE, Mrs. Adik is the creative force behind the annual Children's Day BC Children's March Past and Carnival, a joyous celebration of youth and learning. As the CEO of Beautiful Corners and Aesthetics, a social enterprise, Mrs. Adik extends her expertise to private schools, designing cozy and exquisite learning environments that enhance educational outcomes, boost teacher enthusiasm, and elevate school ratings. With her unwavering commitment to education and her passion for creating conducive learning spaces, Mrs. Sandra Adik is a true champion of change, inspiring a brighter future for generations to come. Welcome, Mrs. Sandra, to the Mind Mastery Podcast with the Mind Master, Osas-Daniel.
All right. Welcome again to the Mind Mastery Podcast. It's going to be another time, and it's always the time where we dive deep into the mindset behind success, wealth, and transformation. And these things must cover a balanced life that we talk about in our finances, in our faith, in our family life, in our fitness, and in our friendship. And with me on this episode, I have a wonderful personality, and that's Mrs. Sandra Adik. It's nice having you on this show. I know that our audience are in high expectation, wanting to drink from your wealth of experience as it has to do with mindset. So let's get directly into our conversation for today. So what are you going to tell us about a defining moment in your life where your mindset shifted and how it has changed your life and career from that particular time?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I believe this conversation would help me as well, those who will be watching. So I think for me, I wouldn't say there was a single moment in my life when there was a shift. I would like to say my life has been sort of a bit different from the conventional person. If I may say, right? Growing up has been a bit different for me. Let me give an instance. When kids are outside playing or people within my age would go out and all of that, I'll be indoors. And imagine growing up in an African family where your own one that would say go out so that you would not happen outside, you don't know what's happening. That was my case, right? I have that thing of just being alone, what people call introverted personality, right? So I also noticed that I think differently from my peers. Like I think 10 years ahead of my age. So what somebody my age will be thinking of, I'll be thinking of it in a different light. So those are things I discovered about myself. So, and I don't know if it's God's programming for my life, and I believe it was deliberate. Why? Because most likely my assignments where God is taking me and all of that. So, but as I go on in life, there are stages in life that I needed to grow. So I would most likely be exposed to a book that would help me do that. I'll see a light from that book I'm reading, or maybe follow somebody up and the person would see something and my mouth would just go, this is actually great. And I'll be like, this is the way to go. So gradually I found out that even it happened to me 3 days now in a row, I've been sitting under some kind of intense tutelage online where I just got a light that I didn't know before, and my mind just like, oh, this is this easy, right? So I've been one person that's been intentional about reading and studying people's lives, and I need studying people's lives, right? I grew up with older siblings, not my direct siblings, but people who stayed with us. So I watched their mistakes, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. I would rather do this, right? So that has been my journey. So I can't really point a particular time in my life that would say, this is the time that everything changed for me. It has been a growth process from one level to the other. I keep changing and keep becoming better.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, now looking at what you do, better class environment, and then the beautiful corners and aesthetics, what is the mindset driving this initiative?
Okay, so one of the organizations, which is Better Class Environment, was birthed from a piece of birding, right? I watched a documentary actually about, I'm an educator, I'm a teacher by training. So normally anything that's to do with education, teaching would attract my attention. So there was this day we're watching a documentary at home with my husband, had to do with education, classrooms. I saw they actually documented classrooms that were intentionally made. And I was like, this is possible now. This thing, you can do it here. Why are classrooms looking the way they are looking? So it was just like a normal documentary, a normal day, and the conversation ended there. But I realized I couldn't shake off that feeling. I even caught myself going online, going on Pinterest to check for classrooms, and it went on like that. And as a person of faith, I believe that it was perfect, right? It was something that God wanted to happen, and He was looking for where to put it. So one thing led to another. In fact, it got to a point where I had to send it to. I put together pictures of very beautiful classrooms. I sent it to our chat group where our ex-students teacher. I said, this is possible. We need to start paying attention to. I didn't know that the assignment was for me. I was trying to really let's do this. If you can do this in your classroom. So that's really a message to me. So finally, it was hard. That was it. It was hard because, like Bible says, counseling costs. I sat down, I calculated, put one and two together. I think this is going to be expensive. It's going to need a lot of labor. That's why the government will do it. If they say you should renovate this place now, they'll start calling. So it took my husband encouraging. I remember there was a particular night we sat up all night saying, I believe it was just God speaking through him. And it's possible. You can do this. So I spoke to a couple of friends. Actually, this thing started with just 6 people. I speak to a few friends, and everybody I spoke to the first person. He was like, I would like to be a part of it. I spoke to the next person, and everybody was asking. I was waiting for them to say no so that I'll go back to God and say, these people are not great. So does it not possible, right? So, but I realized every single person I spoke to was in it, and they were like, okay, let's do this. And we started with my mom's school where she retired. So let's do the first week. Let's do a proof of concept. Let's leave this work. It was during the lockdown. Whenever people, there was a time when people were allowed to come out to buy. So when people are going out to get their supplies, we'll run to the school and do small work. Go back home. Next time we'll run to the school. So that's how it actually basically started. And then it gave birth to a social enterprise where, because Better Class Environment is focused to government-owned primary schools. And the reason for that is because most of the students who go to the schools are from very, and they can't even afford the basic primary. There are private schools that are actually not up to standard. But so imagine parents who have to send their kids to a government school even when they can afford a cheap private school, it shows you that the level of poverty is very poor, right? So we said, let's give them the intervention first, so that, because we know that their parents cannot afford it, right? Somebody asked me this question. They said, this school is for the government. They are supposed to be fixing this thing. We pay tax and all of that. I said, yes, I agree 100%. But the people we're directing this to is not the government, the kids. Our focus is on the kids, because we know that this life is the rotating circle. If you give birth, this is Aoshiga would say, that if you don't take care of the least of us, the best of us cannot survive.
Wow.
So the least are the ones causing the worst problems we're having, right? So we need to begin to look at how do we intervene, how do we look at the least in the society. So that's how better class environment was born. So how to share necessity and the need for sustenance. We said, okay, how do we sustain this thing? It's expensive to remodel classrooms. How do we build a system of sustainability, right? So that was where Youth Spoke on as an extension was born. Because we understand that the private school also need our intervention. So how do we reach out to them, right? So we created the social enterprise where we can reach out to them, provide our service for a service charge, where we can now gather this one and then go back to the government schools and invest it.
This is almost like taking from the rich and then reaching out to the poor.
What Peter finally?
Not the robbing Peter to the big part. But I want to ask, because I know that environment is of the factors that influences our mindset. And just like using the analogy of seeds, there are seeds that never will grow in a particular soil. Not because the seed is impotent, not because the seed is not viable, but because the right environment hasn't been created for the seed. So the best that seed would do is to remain dormant. So how would you say that better class environment influences the outcome of the student or pupils in that school? What role does it really play?
Okay, so in education, you see, research has shown that 25% of learning is affected by the environment. And they say, let me ask, if I put 1% poison in water and you say, I say, no, it's just 1%, but it's not more, just drink it, you'll be fine. Would you take it?
No.
Exactly. So as small as 1%, you would not want to take in something that would jeopardize your health and even your life. How much more 25%? So I like to ask this question. If a child is supposed to have, say, 60%, like let's say he passes by 60%, remove 25% from that 60 marks. How that 60 is like C, you feel it? B, if you remove, let's say B, if you remove 25%, that means he's having a credit. So if he's getting 50, you remove 25%, that's an F mark.
All right.
So automatically, technically, or by real life, we find out that they are actually, these classrooms they are being in affects their studies, because it's not like gravity. Because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. Right? So if you want to try gravity, just climb on the roof and just free fall. Then you know that it exists, right? So most of the time we do not pay attention to details when it comes to learning. We think it's just get a space, let the students come in, let them just sit down. And funny enough, and sad enough, kids spend most of their childhood in school. They spend more time in school than they spend at home. So you find situations where parents clean the house, make it comfortable, and those kids leave home by 7:30 in the morning. And now in our generation where parents work, they don't have the opportunity to even stay with the kids. Some of these kids come back home from school by 4 p.m. Right? Because there's that accommodates.
Yes,
calculate how many hours they've almost spent. You barely remove 2 hours for them to have spent 12 hours in school. So you have created all this fine house, and then these children can't stay in it. By the time they finish primary school, most of them will go to boarding school. By the time they are done with boarding school, they go to the university. By the time they are done with university, they tell you you're not in your house again. This same house that you created for them. So from primary school, they've not stayed in that fine house you created. Rather, they've been hopping from school to school. So why not? Let's go back to those schools and make it comfortable and cozy for them to survive in, because it's like their second home, right? And I always like to say this. Are you surprised that Africa looks the way it is? That our streets look the way it looks? That our environment, do you know that every child replicates what he grows up seeing? If you grow up in an environment, check America for instance, why is it the way it is? It's because they are replicating what they have been seeing. That is why it's that of the next.
You come to our classrooms right now. You enter a classroom, you see desks and chairs. Sometimes the floors are broken and already shaping a mindset. Right? We're talking about mindset right now, right? It's shaping a mindset that, oh, this is how my environment should look like, right? It's just like, I like to give this analogy. When you're entering a house and it's dirty, something in your brain tells you not to remove your shoes. You just enter, right? Absolutely. But if you are entering a house where it's neat, something you'll be saying, should I remove my shoes? Should I remove it outside? Where should I be? Why? Because you're conscious of the environment, right? So somewhere in our head, there's a programming that is taking place. These children spend so much time in school, and that is where their mindset is shaped. That is why Nigeria looks the way it looks. Imagine you go to those schools and you create an environment that shapes their mindset that your environment is supposed to look beautiful. Your environment is supposed to look cozy. Anywhere they go and that environment is not cozy, they will say something is missing, something is wrong, something is not adding up, and they want to fix it. So this problem we are shouting on TV, yeah, people keep the place clean, people organize your spaces. We need to mark our street. If you want to do that, go back to school and start fixing it in there. Let them see it. Let it become a mindset. Let it become a worldview. Let them not be comfortable around chaos, right? Then when they grow up, they will be fixing. I went to, you're a medical person. I went to the hospital one time. I was to pay a bill. My mother-in-law was doctor, and I noticed at the buses their cupboard was broken or what. In my head, I was thinking, what will it take for them to carry one nail, put it to that thing and hit it back, and it will be all right. But that thing will be there until the other, this thing comes out, then the whole door will come out, right? It's because of a mindset and orientation that when something is bad, we change it, we don't fix it, right? So you find out that if you want to fix this mindset, we have to go back to our class and begin to fix our classroom, begin to make them. If we want Nigeria to be organized, let's go back and fix our classrooms. Nigeria will be organized in the next 10 years by default.
You see, you said you went into an area that I always try to run you from. And incidentally, that's my profession. I have actually been of the opinion that the reason why people spend more time in the hospital is not because of the ailments they went to the hospital to treat, but because of the environment that you have in the hospital that is not cooperating with their treatment. So you go to hospitals, you have to close your doors. Let's not go into that because we will spend a lot of time. Now, I want to stress that I have seen Nigerians who are not doing well academically in Nigeria. And then these people, maybe after first degree or after secondary school, they found their way out of this country. And I'm amazed that they are coming out with flying colors. Now, you will not be not this one that I know were in school and didn't know anything. So could it be that their environment contributed to the output of these students that actually have gone out of this country?
Yes, actually, the mind actually really works with your environment. Do you know that 2,000 years ago in Egypt, they usually would, according to my research, that there's some kind of mental illnesses that were resolved by putting a person in a particular space, and the space was painted a particular color. And they keep you in that space, what they call color psychology. In classroom design, there are different colors that trigger different moods, right? Like, I don't know, maybe that's why in the hospital you find a lot of, it is found that blue makes people a lot calmer.
They're not the kind of the dirty blue we see in our hospitals.
Yeah, because they try to keep the blue there, right? So, green as well. And it is found that when you put in colors like orange, red, it triggers creativity. In fact, something it triggers appetite, right? So wherever you find yourself, it's like when people are depressed, you find that they don't want to they want to go very dark so that they sit in their depression. It shows you that a lot of time the environment is an extension of our inner environment. Like that's why the times that when people are depressed, they open the windows, let light in, so that when light comes in, it changes your mood, it changes a lot of things about yourself, right? I'm talking about America. There are places where, so a friend told me that he was driving in America and he got to a place where there was red light, but cars were not coming from the direction. That all he needed to do was just go, but he couldn't go because there was a system that is backing the mindset of those people. The moment you drive past that red light, you don't receive anything. As it looks like they know everybody, they see everybody. But he said that was the point that you need
Nigerians know less than. To show you that there's something about where we are at that does not encourage productivity, even whilst you want to be productive, right? There's a way even our education system is wired, is constructed, our curriculum. It doesn't help you to find you, because everybody is wired different. And the aim of education is to help you find you, then they will help you build you, right? There's this picture I shared on my social media. A boy who wouldn't read, he doesn't know how to read, he doesn't know his number. But do you know what? All the while in the class, he will sit down and he will open his textbook and photocopy exactly the picture. He would draw it exactly and even add his own flavor to the picture. His teacher snapped that you would, and the textbook is printed, but his hand was what drew. You wouldn't know the difference. That was how good that boy at 6 was.
Yeah, he couldn't read.
He couldn't read. He had problems with his reading and with numbers. Now, our education system will give him 0/100 because he's already put up for failure. But let me talk to you, sir. Do you know that if he had created a system where people like that are found early, there's a primary school that is like primary school. That child's primary core subject in that primary school is art. Then they help him to learn numbers. The secondary things he learns is numbers and English. Why? Because he will need it. Then they teach him financial intelligence. They teach him social, emotional intelligence and interaction. I'm telling the truth, he will compete with the Picassos of this world. But they said you need 10,000 hours of maths for you to. By the time he turns 20, he will stand before any artist in this world favorably and compete with that person without fear. Why? Because he was found early and he was nurtured. What's the need of expecting somebody to
go and learn
maths and
calculus
English when that's not his wiring?
You know, recently I asked someone, I said, the quadratic equation you did in secondary school, how has it helped you? How much has it put in your bank account?
Exactly. And funny enough, we fail those who are supposed to pass, and those who have the audacity to follow their dreams are the ones now that are employing those who are first class. Why? Because if we can go back and rewire our education system, find those children there are people who are generic, they are multi-potentials, they can do anything. Those ones can go to a normal conventional primary school, no problem. But those who you can spot their wiring from childhood, those ones are supposed to be extracted, taken to special schools. Like in those days, we have technical schools where they take you to a technical school. Let's have those schools where if a child seems like he has those tailoring tendencies, take them. A child who has musical tendencies, take them to those schools. Then those other things, who said that you must have math? I say this now, go. Say it. So you must have math and English as a compulsory subject for everybody. If you are doing medicine, it's understandable. You must have maths. If you are doing theater arts or anything that has to do with writing, we need English as a composite, correct, we don't have it. But if they will do a blanket treatment where everybody must have maths and English for him to enter this university. It's a problem for all. A lot of talents have died. People have lost faith in their skill. Why? Because of this treatment. And we justify it. No, let's not bring the standard down. He's not bringing the standard down, he's understanding human nature. If our education system can put in the work, sit down and say, we understand there are different paths. People are called into different professions. That's why you see somebody reading sociology, he doesn't know what to come and do with after school. Do you understand? Those things work at a time. But now they are obsolete. Let's leave them. Let's sit down. Let's do the math. That's why they say in Finland, right now in the world, Finland is the best education. Why? Because their teachers are, if you put side by side, they are like one of the celebrated people in the world. Because to be a teacher in Finland, a public school teacher, what you have to go through to get the job is like applying for CBN in Nigeria.
Wow.
That's how strict their education system is. You must earn the whatever it is that will take you to that school.
But here in Nigeria,
people are secondary school.
Maybe you apply for medicine and then the university by themselves.
We just shift you to education. And then I want us to, because there are several issues you are raising that are actually going to form another episode of this podcast because they are pertinent issues. We go down memory lane to find out the origin of education. A lot of people currently are criticizing the system of education because they call it indoctrination camps. And that's why some will not allow their children to go to the formal education, because it was actually created to discipline people. And it was those who had built industries and they needed people to do what they wanted them to do. So they had to discipline them. And that's why today, when you graduate from the university, the question they ask you is, what's your discipline?
And you can't even think outside that discipline. That's why you see people holding their certificate and a graduate. Why? You will sit down to yourself, this graduate thing, what has we had? What has we done? And you know, because of the construct of school, they don't allow you to think outside the box. So when you come out and even what you've learned is not serving you, you cannot think about anything other than that. You understand? So you will see people, 7 years, I am a graduate. 8 years, I am a graduate. There are people 10 years, no job, I am a graduate. It's what they are holding on to like chicken stick.
Yes, you just mentioned a word, and when you look at the origin word education, is actually from a Latin word called educo, and what it means is actually to bring out. But what we have today is putting on us, and now we are struggling with what has been placed on us when what is inside of us is lying down.
That's where the unlearning has to happen, right? In fact, if they bring out what's in you, the teacher has less work, because the teacher that will be like, wow, so you can do this. Wow, you can. This boy I gave an example with, who taught him how to draw? It's innate. It came out of it. So when you nurture a guy and say, okay, this is how you go about it, he gets an art coach and say, from experience, I've learned this, I've learned this, that, I've learned not to do this. So you collapse your coach's 10 years of experience into 1 year, and you don't make the mistakes he has made.
Yes.
Then he now becomes a shoulder where you stand on. Then he now becomes better than your coach. Imagine what the next generation of that particular artist will do. Right?
That is why I tell people, you see, it's not an issue of craft. Because if it's a craft problem, photographers wouldn't have broken that rule. Today, you need to take 2 pictures. Photographer will tell you, if you don't have 5, just to wear 1 cloth and stand, you say you have to pay 5,000 naira per cloth, and it's just 2 days. Then if you want to do 3 cloths, you have to, by the time you calculate everything, 1 session like this, you are giving me 25,000. And it's within, this will happen within 20 minutes.
Yes.
At a time in Nigeria, if you say your father is a photographer, you will see it with the kind of lowest voice you got, because they were not rated. But some people who found that they were called into it wrote that G. They started to edit video and picture in ways I have not seen before. They started to craft it as a business, not just as something I'm skilled to it.
So now everybody now is a photographer. Everybody is taking pictures. Why? Because everybody, now people have, someone sat down and was trained to break. So it's not the skill or it's not the craft. It's when you find people who are genuinely called into it.
Yeah.
That is why when I speak to teachers and I train teachers, I say, there's a way we carry out. If you say a teacher, I am just a teacher. See, if we begin to change that mindset, if you go to a finance meeting now, let's say a conference where financial people, from the outside, the suits, it was a mindset, they created it, what they call perceived value.
Yes.
They created a perceived value. When finance people show up like this, you know that it's not because they are keeping money, it's a mindset they created. The way they create the environment, the cars they come in, the suits they wear, it commands a certain kind of respect. You understand? So people respect them. But when you meet teachers and they are coming, you see them with their sports and they will, even when they enter the corporate room, people to go and sit down. And these are the people that are shaping the mindset of the people up to me. Right? So if the whole person carrying the people that are supposed to shine tomorrow is stealing, doesn't see himself as valued for the miss it. You are carrying a doctor, you are carrying a lawyer, you are carrying a banker, you are carrying an artist. You are the custodian of every other profession. The way you should carry yourself is supposed to be different. So, but because that's perceived value are not being indoctrinated into the mind, and I tell you, sir, if teachers begin to see themselves differently, students will begin to come out different.
Correct.
In learning environment, there's what we call the psychological environment, and it has to do with the teacher. The way the psychological effect of your presence, the kind of mood you create in your class is very pivotal, because learning environments is not just physical. There are actually 3. So people are 3. There's a physical environment, there's a psychological environment, there's a social environment. This year I've been able to touch on 2 of it. The first one is actually creating the physical environment. Secondly, the social environment, the event you came for, the children, creating a social event where teachers and students will come together to interact, right? That's the social part of the learning environment. Then there's the psychological part that deals with teachers. It's one thing I'm really brewing on, sitting on to work on, to interface with teachers, create a system where a teacher feels rewarded, that they feel education. We had a training last year. I told teachers, I said, if you're to be paid for every second you teach,
Do you think you should be at work? right?
Good question.
And I asked them, if you perceive yourself differently, you start to build yourself differently. Because they perceive themselves, they say, I'm just a teacher. They just focus, let me create lesson plan. Let me go to the class. They say we should do lesson aid. Let's create. But if you see yourself as shaping community, shaping society,
As a teacher, when you enter the class, you enter the. When you create curriculum, you create it different. When you create lesson plan, when you are interfacing with the student, I asked them a question. I said, have you seen situations where they have ported people from other organizations to go and work in other organizations because of value? I said, does it happen in a but teacher will be sought after by schools if it does? It's because we are not thinking very. It's all the profession. Do you know that they are the ones that will pass you paper and say, staff, this is how much you want to pay? Then you look at it and say, you write your own, negotiate and ask it and say, this is how much you pay me. Because of your value, they cannot say no. We are the 80s first. I don't know if I'm outside this teaching profession or keep quiet, but we are here. Most weeks.
Wow. Now, looking at everything that you do, I want to find out what are your top 3 daily mental habits or rituals that have fueled your personal and financial growth?
For me, I'm what they call an ambivert. I'm not a very social. I'm learning at least. I'm learning to be sociable and all of that. I like my space. So most of the times, what starts my day every morning is when I wake up in the morning, and that's why I wake up a bit early. For people wake up and they start at. For me, I want to lie down on that bed. I'm not sitting and I'm not up the bed for at least an hour. I need to gather my. I need to brood on. I need to meditate. And let me use that word. That my mind needs to start the day before my body starts. Right. So I start the day by just lying down there. If I need to talk to God, I do, right? In my own way. Like talking to him like a daughter and a father.
Yeah.
And then the prayer part. But this time around, talking to him like I will talk to a normal person. Then looking at my day in my mind, right? And saying, who do I need to talk to? What do I need to do after now? Then I can start the day. But my mind has to start the day first. So I can stay on the bed for good days that I don't have to go anywhere, eat and break and all of that. That's why I can stay on for 2 to 3 hours on the bed without having to go out. So my mind works more than my body does. So my works put everything into perspective. So when I'm up, I know that everything has been compartmentalized and I know where I'm going, what I'm doing. If there are maybe sometimes if your day doesn't go exactly the way you plan, those times I just have a little adjustment and go like it. So majorly that's it for me. Just I like that early morning speak when I have to just sit with myself and just.
But do you know that's actually one of the routines that is very difficult to get people to do. Sitting quiet and just be alone. And one thing people do not know is when you meditate, it's not just a spiritual act as is where you are. How do I put this now? It is not all the things that you don't see that are spiritual. There are things you don't see with the naked eyes. They are actually physical, just that they are beyond what you can see. For instance, in the lab, in my own area of specialty, you see the blood as white. But the blood cells actually are separated into 3. You have the red blood cell, you have the white blood cells, and then you have the platelets. Now, under the light microscope, you can actually see the 3 of them differentiated. So that you are not seeing it doesn't mean it is spiritual. So when you think, you are actually sending waves. And it is those waves that eventually collapse into the physical reality that we have. So it's like you coexisting and co-creating your day in your solitude. That's what you do. And it is a routine, it's a ritual that I encourage everyone to do. In my 4/4 daily rituals that I've always teach in several of my trainings, even with my coaching clients, it is for you to understand that the way the body has been designed, the body is there. So you remind the body with physical exercise. You are the one to execute this work today. So get ready. And what do you do? Some people think, I must go to the gym. No, you don't need to go to the gym. All you need in exercise is trying to expand your lungs capacity so you can take in more oxygen, because that's what you really need. Then once that's done, you can do that by just walking on the step. Use skipping rope. If you don't have the skipping rope, tie cloths and use it. It's just for you to breathe. Now that's for your body. The next is your spirit, like you said. You talk to God through prayers or whatever you want to do. The third thing that I encourage people to do is to actually sit down in solitude and meditate. And in the place of meditation, you can actually write down the things that you're thinking about. Remind yourself of your goals and your aspirations. And then the last one is read. Reading for me dates the software, which is the mind, with new information. So now I have seen you, do projects that seems to be too big for your side. I have seen the number of people that work with you. Now I want to ask, how do you overcome fear, self-doubt, or resistance, especially when the stakes are high in projects that you execute? How do you overcome such fear?
Permit me to be a bit biased. Just in this case, right? I cannot help people but go a bit spiritual. There's so much a human being can do. I admit this anywhere at any time. Even me, when I see what God is doing, even me, I'm surprised. To show you that I don't have, I have a plan, but I don't have. It's just like God stretching His hand and you people, right? I've had my fears. I've had my down moments. I think there was a time, I think it was the last year now, when I had a major issue. We had, I think, a children's event that was going to happen. Couldn't access the account we needed to get money from. It was a crazy situation. I sat down in the night, and I like to talk about these things because most people see results, they think, no, it's okay, it's easy. Yeah, we have our moments of fear, we have our moments of doubt, we have our moments of to put together, to bring young people together like this, to say, let's go left. It's actually very difficult. That is why I can tell you for a fact that 90% of these things that happen it's not my hand. I heavy on God's help. If he is to be here to tell you, he will tell this why they cry baby. Because those times when I feel very low, and anybody who is a leader here knows that. Even in times when you're confident of what you're about to do, there's that for you that doubts your capacity, your ability to get things. I understand that I have my limits. That's one thing I understood very early in life. So those times I go back and I hold you. If you don't help me, I'm done. So this is my if I may say, my secret weapon. My ability to go back. I cannot take glory for what God is doing physically. I can only say I come out of that place. Life is spiritual. That is why we find people going into diabolic things to augment on the physical earth.
Right.
There's a physical part of things and there's a spiritual part of things. And one thing I had promised myself is that even if I don't know Jesus, I will find out that is how I like life being complete.
So it's not that I'm endorsing any other thing, but I like to have balance in life. I will do my physical work, but I've found a buffer in God. Where my strength feels, that is where His strength begins. That's why I tell you, if He's here to talk, He'll tell you this one is a cry. Even when there's no need to cry, I'll go and cry. I'll tell you, that this one, it's like I'm the one telling you, please no sir, that I need you on this one. No sir, that I need. It's like always that you say it's fine, but sir, it's like you are the boss, and I go and say sir, I will need you on this. Say no, it's okay, just calm down. I'll say fast. We need you. You keep saying calm down, but that's how I am, right? So a lot of times my strength comes from my spirit. I don't play with. I think planning this children's event is spiritual energy that went into this. We have a prayer team actually, which is very normal for organizations. Like, we need to come and see us. You think we are praying for a driver, but we are praying for an organization to start. We take fast. I don't prescribe this, but this is my personal experience. So that somebody will not say, they said it to do it.
What we did for you?
Yes. For the team, we had a 1-day retreat for the team, but we had a 3-day retreat for the prayer team at the beginning of the year. Imagine you had a 1-day retreat to plan for the year, but the prayer department had a 3-day retreat to pray the year into manifestation.
Okay.
For the organization.
All right.
That's how heavy I am on the spiritual angle. That's why I said, even if I don't know God, I will go some. Because it takes, you cannot believe everything. We started organizations with a lot of people. I don't know where they are right now. And I feel I should a level of empathy for them, right? But I have an understanding that this thing, it pass muscle, it pass knowledge, it pass wisdom. There's something that happened. I know you said before we started, you're seeing the team of well people. I cannot gather any project. In fact, when we did the last, what do we call it? The last call for volunteers, the capacity of people that you need that if they know what they are going to come and do here, what are these people doing here? Right? I see them and people are out there, you want to join us to understand. But sir, I can tell you their prayers are going. We call people to say, wherever people of capacity are, skilled men, talented men, destiny helpers, wherever they are, just be coming. So now we have funded their call, we are still operating. Are you people supposed to be? We prayed about it, we see manifestation, but still, because somehow in our head we still feel we're small. Yeah, so that is for me. That
I want to say something, because one of the assignments that I've been given is to explain certain areas that people have used mysticism to relegate. Now, before I'll explain, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever prayed for anything that you have not seen? Like, you went into the place of prayer, but you don't know what you are praying for. Because I want to believe that the people you are listing, it's like you have already seen them in your mind's eye. Now you took it to the place of prayer. So have you gone to the place of prayer where you are just praying, but you are not seeing anything?
Yeah, just black. So, the truth is, prayer actually works with our mind. I think I've heard a man of God say something. He said, if you go to the place of prayer with fear and with doubt, what will come out of that prayer is corruption. It will replicate it. So prayer actually replicates what your mind's eye, right? So when you go to, for me, when I go to the place of prayer, I was talking with my TP. I think was it 3 times me message on the platform. There was a time when we could hardly pay 200,000 to do our job, but I'll send them images of dinner, going on retreats to very posh places and all of that. When we don't even have the money to do the present work. So most of the times for me, if I go to the place of prayer, whilst I'm calling those things with words, my mind has gone to that place already, right? I have gone there in my mind, lived the experience. So for me, if it doesn't happen to I'm surprised, I think the question not adding up. Something is not. I remember Oyedepo will say something. He said that this thing that is happening is not surprising him. He said if it doesn't happen, he's the one that will surprise him. What?
I was going to mention it. You always say that I am grateful to God that we are where we are today, but I would have been surprised if we were not here. Now, I want to say this. I am actually I'm liberal. I share a lot of knowledge, but I've come to understand the biblical principle that says you don't cast your pearls to swines. Many people really don't take things that you just share for. So there are certain information that I don't share in public. But because of the areas you have come from and how benevolent you have been in sharing your experience with them, I want to say this. One of the things that have been sold to the masses that is actually making them to fail is the fact that they told them to have a balance of why you need to do things, the thinking aspect, and then the doing aspect. Let me just use the word you are familiar with, the thinking aspect and the doing aspect. So how? So you will see in our social media today, most of the things you are going to see on YouTube is how to, and it seems to be catching a lot of audience. Yes, go and check the result. Very few, if any, produce result, which means that the how is really not what matters. It is actually the thinking. I took time to ask you what are your daily routines, and you said you can spend 1 hour on the bed. What you are doing is the thinking aspect of it is stronger than the how. And that is what you are doing, because I have discussed with certain persons that have results to show for what they do. And then you ask them, they say, no, I can't take glory for it. I can't take glory. And then I probe. And I had, I'm a man of faith. I had the Holy Spirit hold me. He said, when a man see the things that he has done to produce the results that he's seeing, said probe into how he thinks, because it is his thoughts that produces these results. So it's obvious now that when we are talking about the result you produce, your thinking contributes 99.9%, and that is what strengthens and powers the prayers you do. All right, I want to ask, because you were trained in Nigeria, I know that you were not trained with the mindset that you are propagating today. So what are the limiting beliefs, or what are the beliefs that you have had to unlearn to do the kind of things you are doing today?
Okay, I think one of the biggest things that is it ironic with the Terran organization that nobody owes you. You know, in Africa, we have this entitlement, right? That like everybody on this earth owes us something. So because we hold on to the fact that I am supposed to have, I am supposed to, like, that you blame every other person apart from yourself, right? It has a way of robbing you of the true picture of how you're supposed to see it. So because I work with people I don't speak, right? John Maxwell will say something. He said the true test of leadership is when you lead volunteers, because you don't have anything to attach to them. The reason why in a normal workspace, a boss can carry his paper, go out to the computer, and come back. The reason why you obey him is because you know that if you don't, a query is coming, or a suspension, or the very best, they will reduce it from your salary. So that is the yardstick. You might not respect your boss, but you respect people that he pays you, right? So bringing it back, these people that work for you, they know they collect 1 million. You don't pay, they come when they want to come. So if they wake up that day on a bad day, they decide not to come, you cannot say, my friend, come and start coming. You understand? I do. They call today, you understand? Those kind of things. So I have learned that nobody owes me anything. So for that reason, I am grateful for those who are able to give of themselves. So that leads me to one thing I'm always passionate about. It's honor. I don't care if I'm older, you're younger, honor everybody. I don't come, because I'm divorced. Normally when you come, you see us sit together at the team. If they don't tell you how shit me, you come and see us sleeping each other, laughing together. Even they will say this to me, wondering who is the boss here. You understand? You get why? Because at the end of the day, it's not the title. What you need is to get the job done, not who is respecting you or who is disrespecting you. And there are times when you count on people, they don't show up. It doesn't mean that they are bad people. Maybe at that particular time, they were not privy to help you. Still honor them for the fact that they turned you down. And there are many other opportunities. So one thing I had to change is that entitlement to people's lives or people's time. Because they said they will do this with me, I am not, they are not obligated to carry it through. So that eases my heart to know that if I see you, I'm grateful. If I don't see you, I'm also grateful. So access to people's life is not you're not people's God. So when we see it as a privilege for people to grant me access to them, right? No matter who you are, you can be a child. I can be 10, 20, 30 years older than you, but because you granted me access to your life, I honor the fact that you grant me access. I don't take it for granted. I take it with a sense of responsibility. So for me, one of the greatest things that has helped me, most especially in this job I do, I see people and I honor them for their sacrifice. Even when you don't show up, I'm grateful that at least I have access to it, right? There are situations where you find people bamboozling people and saying stuff and all of that. But when you look at life in the real sense of it, it's an honor to know this person. It's an honor to know the next person. I can tell you there was a time that most of the people in BC were students. My female mother can attest to that. Right now, as I tell you, sir, 5 years into the journey, some of them are working with bank. Just recently, one of them, she got a job with NNPC. Some of them now have traveled that road. They are working with hospitals. Some of them by themselves will support to be protected with that, and they don't want to be known. But when we met this guy, they look frail. They look like in fact, there's one particular incident where a lady reached out. She just joined. She came only once for her work, and she said, "Please, can you be my rep? Help me fill the rep." It took me 2 hours of sitting down to fill that lady's form because it was a hospital, to send it back to them, right? But I did it. Why? Because I count it a privilege to even be part of her life. Right now, she's one of the people that if anything's happening in this issue, she wants to support because she remembers that sacrifice, right? Even when I didn't know her that well, That is why people who God brings, you don't know where God is taking them to. So you value them. You understand? But one of the people here with us was
Joy busy, he just finished service again. Now he's traveling abroad on the 23rd. He's going there complete and he's running away to leave us. I don't even know why. Instead of him to stay here. Yeah. So but you can see how God will bring people your way. And because of entitlement, you chase people away or you demand a lot of things that, and at the end of the day, like, I don't want to be part of this person's life.
And you lose the very blessing because they don't look like it now. You think they are not it. You prayed for them, God brought them. But because they are not the refined version of what you are looking for, you look down on them, you say stuff, and they go away. Tomorrow I get to know this. Well, you don't have access
to the person. Wow. It's quite obvious. Your disposition says a lot. And when you started talking about honor, it shows. If I were asked to describe you in one word, I think what I would use is humility. It just revolves around her. So the last, because of time, you have a lot of people working with you, and you also have biological children coming. If there is one mindset you would want them to inherit, not your assets, not your money, not your property, but this one mindset that you would want them to carry forward in their life, what would it be?
I've been through a lot of things. Like, what has kept me going? The ability to start. If there's one thing I did like to tell people is seasons change. I think what I've gone through in life as a person, the world came at me very early. I should not be where I am today by virtue of the kinds of things I went through. It should have broken me. But me, the ability to stand up and say, there's more. This life can be better. I've seen the lowest of the low of life. I've gone through a bit, right?
Yeah.
And nobody is promised a rosy land. But then we find out that in this generation, most especially, we like suffering. I fear for this generation. Why? Because we'll have people who would either give up early or don't make it at all, or people who they see suffering. Judy, is suffering the word? I don't know the word, but I think there's a better word for it. They see when life throws things that you all curveball, they see it at the end of life. Oh, it's like, but that is what is supposed to make you. The strength I have today was produced by the kind of thing I went. The person I am today is a product of the things I have had to endure. The things I have had to. The leader I am today was produced by a leader I was from in some place, and the things I had to endure because God knew where He was taking. I started my leadership journey by leading 6 people. It became 12. From 12, it became 22. From 22, now we have over 100 people. And I don't know where God is taking. Maybe I'll leave Nigeria. I don't know.
That's a joke.
Minister of Education.
So, but the thing is, at every stage, whatever
I'm able to overcome at that stage, it makes me stronger, and I move to the next stage. So today I'm learning people's skills, I'm learning emotional intelligence, I'm learning how to manage situation, how to manage crisis. All these things, it seems like it's problem, but they are making me, right? Like I told you, I had an event where I cried all night. I came out of it and I did another event again, right? So the thing is, it's the making. A time will come, I will be ushered into another season of my life.
Yeah.
And God expects that I'm wise enough to allow myself to be trained by this current season. So that when I get there, I'm equipped to handle the next season. Because every season is supposed to train you for the next season. So when you get to the next season, you are trained for the next season. So now I'm handling volunteers that tomorrow now, if I don't, let's say for instance, I don't do it right. And they say, we see what you do in education. Come and help us to manage this place. We help us fix it. And all the while, it was a charade. I was just carrying myself as CEO, president, and founder. Up and down. Not doing the work. When I get there, I won't speak English. And people don't understand English. They only understand Igbo. Right. So doors of opportunities can open to you. I can tell you this from experience. Recently, a lady's boss called me and she was complaining. that he employed her, she made him pay her, he paying her 200,000, she not delivering on the job, he would just stay in the office, take pictures and send to him. He doesn't understand. He employ her today. I don't know if I see what I used to tell them. They are here, I will tell them, open up your heart, learn while you are here. Then things you're supposed to pick up here. So when you pick it up there, you get somewhere else. You say, I need this. Right? So I didn't even know what to tell her. I said, no, he said he wants to fire her. I think, I don't you, he's asking, tell you to fire her or not, right? So, and she came from somewhere. He picked her up from somewhere. She showed that she had potential to do the job. So, but now she's in the job. He's paying her and the plan is not even in Nigeria. He's paying her money and he's saying no result, only pictures of them sitting on chair. You know, that's what tips servants. So let's leave it there.
Wow. Research. And when you talked about management, people from 6 to 20 to 100, I also think that the mentality works in virtually every area of life, particularly in finances. And people do not know that you cannot really increase your financial thermostat until you are able to manage the level that you are in. And it goes in cycle. If you do not stretch and say, oh, this is what I have 100,000 naira now. Okay, I can do this with it. And then when you begin to stretch, your financial thermostat will reset. And say, okay, this person needs more. And it goes like that. And that's the same thing you have also applied in working. Now, I want you to random, I want you to tell us what are the things that you are into. Let's get to know the better class environment and the beautiful corners and aesthetics. What are they? And if there are things that people want to collaborate with you on, or if there are programs that you do that people want to be part of, or if there are trainings that you do for schools, because from what you said now, it means that you are into mentoring teachers. So if there are ways they can get, yes, the link will be on the description below of this video, but just share with us what they
So basically, what we do in BCA, right? Because both organizations are actually BC, and we're grateful that PAT approved both. So better class environment is BC, beautiful corners and aesthetics is also BC. So BC is the direct name for both organizations. So
for us in the non-profit sector, that's the better class environment, we reach out to under-resourced schools and provide learning environments that are cozy and comfortable with resources that would help them learn, right? Because like I said earlier, we understand that these kids come from backgrounds where you don't ask to be born in those homes.
Yeah.
Like me, God didn't take my permission because this is the family I'm coming from. I just saw myself there. If God consulted me, I would have said,
can we consider? Let's not call it. Maybe can we consider Mark Zuckerberg? That would be a better choice, right? So, but he didn't consult. So those children don't have a hand in how they came here.
But he knows that there are people who can stand in the place to help. So I will understand education is critical for every child, and we understand that the experience. That is why most times students don't like school, because from the environment is already shaking your mind, and learning is a lot of work. So you cannot combine learning with a stressful environment. So we try to see if we can. We'll not even scratch the surface when it comes to the work we do. We're just starting out. I think even in the next 10 years, we'll still be starting out, because the work is a lot. We need to, for us, we want to create a mindset shift. It's not just the work we do. We want to get to a situation where that schools are intentional and deliberate about how their environment. So for the other arm of the organization, which is Beautiful Corners and Experts, we actually reach out to private-owned school, where we could come to your school, sit with you, find out, okay, what's your curriculum like? We can create environments that can help you or your school. Let me give you an example. Let me know what's your offer. Say for instance, because in our classroom design, there are different types. For instance, multi-area classroom design, where you can create a single room but has different aspects of the class. Say for instance, you have a story corner, where if the child teach CIK, you leave your decks, you go there, they read the CIK to you as a story, because that's what it is, right? You have a discovery corner when they want to teach you science. You don't sit on that same chair. Since morning, you're sitting here, you learn math, learn English, you go to that portion of the class, sit down there, everything you need to learn, the material. Let's say, for example, you're learning evaporation. The whatever light is there, the water is there, you watch your teacher do it in real time, right? In the same classroom. We want to create a situation where your class can be changed. You can change your chairs into a what do we call it? Like you're going to have a conference, you can change your seat. Who said the seats must be in rows and columns? Who told them that is how it's supposed to be?
And who told them that you cannot have being birds in class as chairs? You must be straight, sit, and read rules. Right? So all these things are things let's bring to perspective. It doesn't change anything that if a child is sitting on a soft chair or on it. In fact, the weight your body is carrying, now that we're sitting here for a while, notice that we've not been technically sitting because this side width of our body is side by our butt. With time it to get tired. So you need to shift a bit to create some level of comfort. So those things we bring to your school. And the good part of this is that parents don't see what you teach their children, but when they enter your space and they see you pay attention to excellence, they're like, if this school go to this level,
It means that, wow.
so it even increases your clientele. The school sells itself by itself just by the environment. So if you're thinking business, I've told you one that help your school, because everybody who steps into an environment that is well catered for, like if you go to one of the most expensive schools in Nigeria, owned by is it Charter House now? Their school fees is a million, but by stepping into an environment, you will not argue the amount because they pay that attention. You will see, and now that they are advertising the school, they are not telling you. They didn't open book to show you this in the curriculum. They just take you around the school, and that is it. They allow you to go and decide. That's the power of environment. They take you to the hostel, to the canteen. So if it's not important, they will take you to your office and say, this is what we are teaching. But that once they are taking you on the tour, they'll tell you this is our curriculum, this is what they are showing you, is what your eyes can see. As far as your eyes can see, they show you the equipment, how much detail that they pay attention to in the school, right? So
But you have a lot of work. You have a lot of work, and as you mentioned, I am going to come back for another episode because there are much that we need to talk about. We started mentioning creating special environments for particular activities in class. It brought to mind that even in our home, it's one of the reasons why I always advise my coaching clients, do not read in the bedroom. Why? Your mind already has programmed the bedroom to sleep. So once you are sitting on the bed, even if you weren't feeling sleepy before you got there, just hold on. In the next 10 to 30 minutes, if you do not have insomnia, the mind will boot itself and you fall asleep. So it means when students know that, okay, this area is for storytelling, this is for creativity, it actually enhances their learning. It's been a wonderful time speaking with you. The time was spent judiciously, and I still think we have more to discuss going forward. And spending time to talk about this nitty-gritty that has to do with the mindset surrounding environment, education, and the work that you do. You go a long way in helping a lot of people to start thinking twice, especially for those who think that, in our time, we didn't do all those things, but yet you don't know that you probably would have been better if you had that environment than what you are right now. So not settling for the place where you are now, and then you then measure grit. Being able to stand when challenges comes, it is something that we should hold on to. Because every man out there that you see that is successful or popular or influential today, who if they have not failed before, they are actually impersonating. That's the truth. In the next 1-2 years, they will be there. But if truly they are representing themselves, they have track records of failed projects, failed events, challenges that they had to overcome. So, Mrs. Sandra, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your time, and I thank your team for availing themselves for this to be done. Thank you so much, ma. I appreciate you. Go through.